Yes, y'all. What up, YouTube family? It's Iconic, and I'm coming at you with another Diablo Immortal video. Let's go. All right, for this one, I wanted to take a look at what I think some of the best 1 and 2 star gems are for Blood Knight. This is going to be for free-to-play players or low spenders. All right, let's check it out.
We have the finest goods the world over.
So we're over here at the market, and I wanted to pull up the 1 and 2 star gems here and just take a look at what I think makes the most sense for Blood Knight. I've been playing it for a couple of weeks now, and I think I have a pretty good grasp on it. I am using a combination of 2-star and 5-star gems, but I have used the majority of these gems at one point or another in the game, testing them out. So I think I can give you guys some pretty good insight on it. So the first one that I want to call out is Carsons Invigoration. This is usually one of my top choices. Attack speed is one of those things that's a little bit broken in the game, so the more of it you can get, the better. And Carsons Invigoration is definitely one of those gems that can help out. At max rank, it's going to give you 16% additional attack speed, and then it's also going to boost up your primary attack damage as well. Next one that I think makes a lot of sense is the Respite Stone. So you take 0.55% decreased damage for every 10% your life is below maximum, up to a maximum decrease of 5.5%. I'm not exactly sure what the maximum is on this one. However, with the tankiness of the Blood Knight, this can actually be a very good defensive gem to slot in to help you out with that as well. Pain of Subjugation is one that maybe I think might not be on people's radars, especially for 1 and 2-star gems, but you actually have a lot of attacks that could deal loss of control when it comes to the Blood Knight. And this one, unlike Chip of the Stone Flesh, it doesn't have to be total loss of control. So any one of the Blood Knight's knockbacks, knockups, stuns, anything like that will all work with Pain of Subjugation. So this one actually could be a really good gem to slot in. Berserker's Eye, of course, is a given. At max rank, it's going to increase all damage you deal by 16%. It will increase the damage you take by 5%. So a little bit of a trade-off there, but you have so many ways to keep your health up with Blood Knight that extra 5% is definitely not an issue. And then your critical hit chance increases by, I think it's 2% at max rank, if I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3%. Celad's Weakening, I think, is another one we could potentially take a look at. That's definitely an area I feel like the Blood Knight, even as I've been playing it, lacks a little bit in. It deals pretty good damage, but the single target damage is where it seems to lack a little bit for bosses specifically. I feel like I don't take them down as fast as I do with other classes, even with some of the things that I've tried out. I'm still getting my Essence Mastery, but I think this could help out too as well. So you gain 6% increased damage for 60 seconds after killing an elite boss or a monster, and then increases all damage you deal to elite bosses and monsters too as well. Everlasting Torment is going to be the next one that I think could really slot in well. With Blood Knight, you definitely are trying to get as much critical hit chance and critical hit damage as you can. And with Everlasting Torment, your critical hits inflict agony, dealing 10% base damage plus 122 every second for 6 seconds. And this definitely goes up considerably once you get it to rank 10. And one of the best sets that I've seen to use with this is going to be Gloom Guides, which will increase your critical hit chance by 22.5%. If you happen to be rocking Mother's Lament as well, you could be critting a pretty decent amount of the time. So this is only going to increase that critical hit damage too as well. The next one that I think may be a big sleeper is the Black Rose. I've gotten hit by this in PvP, and this would be PvP specific, but it can lock you up depending on who's throwing it at you. So with Blood Knight, if you can keep somebody in the same position and lock them up for a little bit with a stun, or in this case, a legendary gem, you definitely can deal off some really good damage. So I think this one may be a sleeper that you could consider for free-to-play low spender. Exigent Echo, I think, is actually another really good choice. So your block chance is increased by 10% for 6 seconds when you receive a critical hit. Cannot occur more than once every 20 seconds. And then during the effect, damage received when blocking is reduced by 3%. This is just another good defensive gem to make you a little bit more tanky. If you combine it with the Warband Room that increases your block chance by 5% too as well, I think these two things can go hand in hand, and especially with some of the other things you have with Blood Knight, make you even more tanky, even more of a defensive monster. And on that same vein, Heartstone here is going to increase the duration of your absorb shields by 16%. And then your absorb shield also reduce the duration of loss of control effects by 6%. Now, I wouldn't combine like all of these defensive gems together, or you're not going to have the same damage output. But I think Heartstone might be one of the best that you could put in out of all the defensive gems on the 1-star section that I've named so far. Moving on to the 2-star section, I think right at the beginning here, Power and Command is definitely a great gem. One of the best that you could slot in for your damage amping gem when it comes to Blood Knight. It's not really separated into primary attacks and skill damage like with some of the other classes that I played, where Demon Hunter, you're really focused on your primary attack damage, even though you're all mixing in skill damage when it comes to your buffs. It's definitely not like some of the other classes where like Wizard, you could go skill or primary attack damage, but you're not necessarily doing them both at the same time. Monk, you could do the same thing. You could go skill damage or primary attack, but you're not necessarily doing both at the same time not at the same time, but alternating between them. With Blood Knight, you're definitely alternating a lot between your skills and your primary attacks. So I think actually Blood Knight is probably one of the top classes that can utilize Power and Command in the correct way. The Hungerer, again, one of those defensive gems that gives you a defensive stat, but also gives you a little bit of an offensive stat too as well. So this is going to make you a little bit more tanky since you instantly heal for 40% of your base damage plus 567 total life when you defeat an enemy. But it's also going to increase your attack speed by 4% for 3 seconds after defeating an enemy. So this could actually have a pretty good trade-off for both offensive and defensive on the Blood Knight. Battle Guard, again, if you want to go with another defensive gem, you're going to be in melee attack range a good percentage of the time when it comes to Blood Knight because of the mid-range aspect of how your attacks work. So even though you're not necessarily completely up close in front, there are plenty of melee attacks for the Blood Knight that will keep you in that range, or you're diving in and you're right in melee attack range. So this is just going to help mitigate some of that damage. It decreases all melee damage you take by 8% from enemies within 3 yards. And I want to say that's 20 or 24% at max rank. And then you move unhindered through enemies while your life is below 15%. Escapability is definitely something I've run into with the Blood Knight, where it's a little bit hard to get away sometimes when you're taking damage and you know you need to get out. So this can help you do that a little bit better too as well. Cutthroat's Grin is another one that I want to highlight here. Because you're trying to get as much critical hit chance as you can, this is only going to amp that up even more. Gain 8% increased critical hit chance when attacking from behind. Deal 1% increased damage when attacking from behind. So this is going to be for like bosses and PvE most of the time. You may be able to pull this off in PvP every once in a while, but stacking up that critical hit chance with Cutthroat's Grin is going to be a massive increase. And I believe, again, I think this is 24% if I'm not mistaken, with the fully maxed out Cutthroat's Grin. Lightning Core is one that I didn't think I would throw into the mix, but you definitely need a little bit more, I feel like, when it comes to the primary attacks on Blood Knight. And this can be a good way to do that. Your primary attacks and movement slowly charge you up with electricity. When fully charged, your next primary attack will release Chain Lightning, dealing 90% base damage plus 1,134 to nearby enemies. And then after unleashing Chain Lightning, all damage you deal is increased by 3% for 3 seconds. So I think this actually could help out with the primary attacks on Blood Knight. Not that they're awful by any means, but Again, you definitely need to be using them in conjunction with your skills. There's not really a good build to just utilize your primary attacks and attack speed and attack as fast as you can. And then I have 2 more main gems and then 2 that I want to leave for honorable mentions. So the next one is Pain Clasp. I use this myself and I love it. Increases damage dealt by 8% to enemies suffering from continuous damage effect. So the thing to keep in mind here is it's not continual. There's continuous damage and continual damage. Continuous is going to be the things that work with grace, like Consecration on the Crusader, anything that's doing a persistent, continual damage to the enemy. Where Pain Clasp is going to be when you apply burn, poison, bleed to an enemy. That's going to increase your damage. So it is a little bit specific, but once you do it, it's there with any of your other attacks that you're doing on that enemy. So I think it's one of the best 2-star gems in the game, but you do have to build around it just a little bit. The Blood Knight does have a couple, actually 3 skills that works with this. You can apply bleed, you can apply poison from the swarm of bats, and with the whirlwind one, the one that you spin around with, you can apply burn with that too as well. I had to check the skills, so these are going to be with specific essences, but Spear Flurry will apply bleed. Swarm of Bats has an essence that will apply poison, and then Whirlwind or Whirling Strike will apply Sweeping Flames. That specific essence will apply burn to the enemies. And then if you have Seeping Bile or you have Everlasting Torment, Pain Clasp works really well. So you do definitely have some options to be able to do that with Blood Knight. And then last but not least on my must-haves for what I would look for on 1 and 2-star gems, Mother's Lament. I can't rave about this gem enough, and I still think people are sleeping on it. From comments that I see, from things that I've seen on Reddit, this really does take your critical hit chance to another level. You increase your critical hit chance by 32% at rank 10 for 6 seconds, and this thing can be boosted by beneficial effect duration, and they fixed it to where it now works with Vithus. So you can have upwards of 9-10 seconds of this extra critical hit chance, and then you can combine it with other sources of critical hit chance too as well, from your gear or from your set pieces. They don't all scale the same. I have a video talking about that, but this is by far, I think, one of the biggest gems that have released. And if you notice, whales are using it for PvE content. Like, everybody's jumping in on this gem that knows how good it is. Don't worry about the timing on it. I mean, with your beneficial effect duration, and if you happen to be using Vithus, this thing is going to be proccing all the time, and it counts the seconds that it's active. So even at its very worst, every 14 seconds you're actually getting that increase to your critical hit chance. And with most classes now, you're doing so many attacks per second that you're going to be doing a crit or multiple crits really every single second. So that's definitely something you want to look out for. Now, I do agree that the second part of the gem isn't that great. It's a little bit random. You have to be in the right place at the right time for it to hit. But you release a blood spike toward the enemies, dealing 13.5% base damage to any enemies it hits, and it causes them to bleed. So in my case, I use Pain Clasp as well. So if they do get hit with that and they bleed, they're also getting that 24% increased damage from Pain Clasp. And I think this is 50. I'll have to look. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. Or actually, I'll look real quick. I think it's 54%. Yes, that blood spike is 54% damage, base damage at rank 10.
Welcome, most esteemed patron.
And then I wanted to take a look at a couple of honorable mentions. These are going to be in the 2-star category. So the Abiding Curse, I think this one actually is a little bit interesting, where your attacks have a 15% chance to curse enemies, reducing their attack speed and movement speed by 35% for 2.5 seconds. And then damage dealt to cursed targets increased by 2.5%. So you're already doing so many things that reduce the attack and movement speed of enemies with Blood Knight that combining those with the Abiding Curse, I think could be interesting. This would require further testing, so I'm not saying this is end all be all, but I do think there's definitely some interesting combinations that you could do with the Blood Knight and the Abiding Curse gem. And then the other one that I wanted to mention is Cursling. You have a 15% chance when attacked to release a burst of light that blinds all nearby enemies, reducing their vision and causing total loss of control. And then deal 3.5 increased damage to blinded enemies, and of course those go up as you rank it up. This one too as well, I think is a little bit specific, but could definitely lend itself very well to some of the essences on the Blood Knight that will actually increase their damage taken when they're suffering loss of control or an ailment. I don't know exactly how well Cursling will work with that, but I think it's something that could be interesting to test, especially if you're running a loss of control build, a CC build. So this is one to keep in mind too as well. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Just a little quick update for you guys. We're over 300 subscribers. The first update that I gave you was at 100 subscribers. So we're growing quicker than I even anticipated. Again, I appreciate all the support. You guys mean everything. Checking out the videos, commenting, liking, sharing. It's all going on. And I don't even have to tell you guys to do it. Like, y'all are doing it. So definitely appreciate the love, appreciate the support. Next up, I definitely want to take a look at the best 5-star gems and do a little tier ranking. And we want to get into some more builds for the Blood Knight. So I've got that coming up for you guys. Check it out. Again, I know you guys know what to do, so I don't even got to say it. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.